Hari Om Swamiji. It is indeed a delight to be on this chat with you. I am so honored and privileged that I can have a conversation with regards to parenting and spirituality with you.
I am also very happy to be in this session, and let's not waste time. Start off.
So I have collected a few questions from a few parents, and here goes. So the first question is about a pre-format. So there isn't really a pre-format about raising a spiritual child apart from the ritualistic ways. Some parents are raising kids without any religion due to disillusionment. In the latest psychological research, thought leaders clearly recommend the well-being of an individual comes from a spiritual connect. What are the right guidelines teaching spirituality to children?
We must be very clear about certain ideas that are being propagated. In any field, there are always some distortions, and it still has certain beauty. So depending on the age of the child, there are certain methodologies by which you bring about that spiritual unfoldment in the child. For example, in the nursery or in the play school, children learn with figures, with toys, by play. When you say the word ritual, and we have got such a connotation, in fact, playing with toys in the nursery is a ritual. It's an external prop given to the children to internalize, say, the alphabets, the pictures, the names. So, certain practices which we brush off as rituals or part of religion, in fact, has been well tested over a period of time. That a family that prays together has an Ishta Devata, a particular form that they worship. They do, and depending on whatever is part of their culture, when they have the singing or even the lighting of lamps, candles, etc., these are very, very helpful props for children to understand that they are in a space and they can create an atmosphere, and they have a place where they can go to whenever they have this sense that we need some peace, we need some solace. And even little children will always gravitate towards a picture, or even in certain places they will take up a teddy bear. So rather than teddy bears, etc., they have the spiritual icons which is necessary. So please, whatever is there in the culture, bring it up, bring the children up in that culture. In fact, I would say that in our Shishu Vihar, we have created a program for the little children, even toddlers. So I would suggest that make a research. We have it on website. We have a website on it. No? And you can introduce these aspects to the children in a more contemporary, more fun manner.
That's a great tip, Swamiji. It is so important to know that a family that prays together stays together. And instead of finding comfort in their teddy bears or toys, to actually have a connection with an icon. For example, my kids really love Hanumanji and they can connect to him. And so also it's a great time to start Shishu Vihar and Bal Vihar. So yes, thank you so much. So my next question is, how can we pause to help our children partake in spirituality other than the morning prayers and puja, Swamiji?
See, just as you take them to school, you can take them for their spiritual studies, whether they come to our Bal Vihars, you take them to these places, and of course, it is up to the teachers there to make it interesting for them, enticing them, a little of encouragement from the parents. Together, it becomes an enjoyable, and from our experience, we have seen around the world how children, in fact, bring their parents because they find a very joyful, meaningful peer group at all ages when we are encouraging them to come into certain congregations or for certain spiritual classes. They find like-minded peers, they feel comfortable, they make friends, they enjoy. And that way, it's not just a monotonous taking them. Yes, there are different type of children. Some children are a bit reluctant. Parents have to, even to send them to school, you have to kind of push them. Little bit of cajoling, a little bit of them, parents showing interest in their learnings, their understandings, having discussions with them. This is all very helpful. And finally, it is what the children see their parents taking interest in and transforming their lives that makes a big difference in the interest of the children towards the spiritual unfoldment.
Wow, that is so enlightening, Swamiji. So here's the next question. As a parent, I would chant and sing to my babies some bhajans that I know. But what if a parent doesn't know any bhajans? What can that parent do?
So you should learn. As simple as that. It may not be immediately possible, but you should learn. And where you don't know, just as you have tutorial classes for the children, you facilitate learning from other people, even from grandparents or uncle, aunts, or, as I said, today we have these kind of sessions, classes, spiritual camps, where children are brought and they can learn. But it's very helpful when the parents learn together. It should not be that, oh, I'm grown up, I don't need this. The children need it. Children grow faster than even you grow. And if you keep that attitude that you don't want to learn or it is difficult, your children are bound to get that attitude faster and more powerful than you have it.
That is so helpful, Swamiji. I wanted to know what is a good way to introduce Bal Vihar to children at a young age and help them to actually be a part of it and also be curious and not accept things blindly, So what do you think about that?
See, that's why you must take your children to learn from those who help them to inquire. And at each stage, the child's mental growth is different. As I said, in the nursery, children play and learn through observation. In fact, knowledge comes to them from all sides. Only you have to create a conducive, playful, as well as an atmosphere of love, affection, where children naturally pick up. If that training starts very early in life, inquiry doesn't mean that children have to be necessarily skeptical or even argumentative. Children learn in different manners. In fact, we are using that in the field of education. But when it comes to the spiritual field, suddenly our mind just twists, as we start thinking that, oh, what if it is blind belief? You may have followed it blindly, but remember, children don't follow anything blindly. They've got eyes all over themselves. They hear, they see, they observe even your whispers in the house. So mind you, children's way of learning is never a blind method. So don't be afraid of that. But yes, where they are given dogmas or they are given, forced into dogmas, that you must have the wisdom of not either imparting it yourself or allowing anyone to impart it on them. Not your beliefs. Very often parents want that even others should impart their beliefs to their children. You take them to those places where they go through learning rather than being just instructed. And that's how we, according to our Gurudev's vision and the method of their teaching of the great rishis, this is how we design all the spiritual activities for the children, for the youth, so that they learn through observation, they learn through the experience of the teachers, they learn through the teachings of the scriptures, which are well tested over the period of time, rather than just get some ideas, beliefs, or dogmas. Yes, after learning, each one develops their own faith, and that's their own, and it's not blind.
That is so important to understand, Swamiji, that our children have eyes everywhere. And being children, they are going to be curious and they are going to inquire about things, right? So during my time when my children were in Balvihar, I remember them asking me a lot of questions, and to the best of my ability, I would try and answer them. But for some parents who don't have answers, they tell their children not to question them and say, don't question us. They hush it up and they say, this is how it is. What can we suggest to these parents so that they are able to get answers to the questions that their children have when they are curious and inquiring?
That's why I said that parents should not just give their beliefs or want their beliefs in the children. We are talking about these facilities available for parents who at that moment do not have any answers. But it's very important that when the children inquire of the parents should be able to answer to them, and if they are not able to answer, find out the answers to it and give the children themselves. It's not just that we want our children that they should learn. As I said, it is also, parenting is also learning from the children. It's very important to understand this factor, that when you teach the children, you are learning from the children. So, it is important that parents do learn themselves, find answers, and be able to answer to the children. And there are times one may not have the answers. Must always tell the children that we don't have the answer, but there has to be a meaning. Let's try to find out together. And like that, together they can probably go to the grandparent who probably has the answer, or take them to a place or to a person who may have the answer. And the fun is that both the parent and children were learning together. And I'll just give you an example. A parent and his little child both used to attend my sessions separately, but I never underestimate the wisdom or the capacity of the children. The same fundamental aspects of understanding of the mind, of the self, you give the children in a simple manner by which they can understand. But an adult whose mind is already too cluttered or complicated, you have to use a lot of logic, etc., to explain. And still, very often, they do not understand. There was a question-answer session where both the father and the child, who had grown up now, were sitting, and the father was still asking similar questions. And I was so pleased to see that the child turns towards the father and said, "We've heard this from Swamiji before, the answer," and gave the answer which he picked up as a child, looking at the father, that this is such a simple thing to understand, even though he was not condescending, but it's like, how come you don't understand? I understood this as a kid. So it's such a wonderful process that when they learn together and both have that thrill of learning together and discovering together. So try that methodology, that if you don't know, we try to find out together. Sometimes a parent has to find out and explain to the child, depending on the age of the child.
Wow, that is such an easy way for parents to do that. So my next question to you is, Swamiji, how do you encourage children to be kind but not be a doormat, be confident yet not too aggressive?
In our whole idea of compassion, kindness, goodness is a form of weakness. But understand, it is these virtues that build your character and give you strength. Unfortunately, of course, this question comes up very often at a personal level from people, that, if I am too compassionate, or if I'm too good, will people not take advantage of my goodness? In fact, one person went and asked Pujya Gurudev, if I am too good, will people not take advantage of my goodness? He said, what's the use of being good if people don't take advantage of it? What's the use of being a good cook if nobody is there to eat it? Oh, if I tell everybody I'm a good cook, then many people will come and eat my food and I'll be cooking for them. And what's the use of you being a good cook if nobody has got a chance to taste your food? So please understand that our whole idea of goodness is actually a sense of favor that we are doing on someone. At the same time, we also have this sense, and this comes from the advantage that we take of people and whom we call them as good. That's why in Hindi, there is a saying, "Bichara bala admi," the poor good fellow. When you add that adjective, poor good fellow, we are subconsciously pointing out to our own selves in our mind that people who we can take advantage of, people who are constantly obedient, people who do not question or challenge you, such a person is good. And anyone who questions you or even challenges you or even inquires of you or may not agree with you, such a person is very egotistic. So we are generally judging goodness from our own convenience. and to our own advantage. And therefore, we become afraid of being good, that people will take advantage of it, because people whom you can take advantage of, you call as good. And people who will not allow you to misuse you, you call them as bad. Know the difference between the two. It's very important to know this. And don't ever think that a good person is weak. In fact, good people are ones who have got nothing to fear. And fear is a weakening factor. An honest person has got nothing to fear. Nobody can take advantage of a person who is honest. If we say also from honest people, people take advantage, they take advantage of their weaknesses, not of their strength. We have to be very clear about this idea, and especially when we impart this to the children. Another beautiful thing, once, just like you have asked this question, many years ago, and I've shared this very often, a mother wrote to me, and truly she has brought up her children with kindness, compassion, giving, sharing. And an incident happened in school where the child took his, play ball, and the other children grabbed it, pushed him, and the boy came home crying. The mother naturally went and discussed it with the other parents, but they were like, come on, they were playing, and they didn't really care. So it made us start reflecting that, have I made my children with these values someone who will not be able to face the world which is cruel, which is unkind, which is selfish? She did not think that being compassionate, kind, and sharing is wrong. But her feeling was that if others outside her family are not compassionate, kind, sharing, but aggressive, then are my children going to be hurt? Are my children going to lose out? If they are not aggressive, if they are not fighting? Of course, I would have gone into explaining to her, like I'm doing right now, about goodness and about the strength of goodness, and give examples. Is Hanuman weak or is he strong? And to know the difference between all this. But that time, suddenly, one story flashed on my computer. And it was a very beautiful story that said it all. And I'll just repeat that story. That one day, a monk came to a village, and after having inspired the people, and naturally having won the love of everyone, when he was about to leave for his next destination, the shortest cut was through the forest, a small forest or the woods. But everybody stopped him and said, "Don't you go there, because there is a ferocious, huge snake, and that strikes anyone who comes through that path. So please don't go there." The fearless monk, seeing the fright of all the people, and to even help them in this condition, decided to go into the forest and take the forest path. Not only to find out whether the fear of the people had any basis, or they had only conjured up a myth. But truly enough, there was a huge snake that came there on the path with its hood spread out, about to strike. But the monk, who has got love, and therefore through love has that identification, could communicate to that snake that, why are you harming people unnecessarily? Stop biting and killing people. The impactful message from the mind that went to the snake lowered the hood and went into its hole. The monk left from there, and a year later when the monk came back, he was surprised and pleasantly surprised to see that now the children would run into the forest, play in the forest, and their laughter, their play. So he thought that no longer that snake is a danger. And when he went back to the forest to look back, to find the snake, he found, as he called out, a shriveled, bruised snake there, unlike the shining, powerful, magnificent snake that he had seen. He inquired, where is that snake? And that snake said, that snake is me only. So he looked and said, what happened to you? He said, I followed your words. I followed your instruction. I stopped striking the people. Now see, nobody is afraid of me. And now the children also, they come, they poke sticks into the hole where I am staying. I can't even come out during the day because I am beaten by the children only. But I did follow what you told me to follow. I stopped frightening, I stopped striking, I stopped killing. And this is my condition today. The monk said, I told you not to kill, but did I tell you not to hiss? Being good does not mean that you are so weak that people can misuse you. In fact, if you are good, you have your inner strength. Compassion is an ornament of those who can retaliate, not those who are weak. Non-violence is a quality of a person who can be violent and does not use violence. So, the virtues do give you strength. Don't misappropriate the meaning of these words, because compassion is not weakness. Compassion requires a lot of strength. Forgiveness requires a lot of strength. And it is only the brave, the courageous, and the strong who can do it. And people must understand values properly, that to bear injustice is also, or see injustice done, is also as bad as doing injustice yourself. So to be able to fight when it is required to protect the people who are good, and for goodness sake, that ability must be there in our children. Not just to fight for anything, but that ability must be there. Then, in fact, you don't get into the fight because others know not to misuse that person. So develop all these virtues in the children. And this is a very important part of the upbringing of the child at their different stages. And real spirituality begins with the right values that we give to the children and the virtues that they cultivate, or we help them cultivate within themselves to be strong and noble people. Not strong and aggressive, but strong and noble.
That really helps, Swamiji. I wanted to know, this is a very pertinent question that other parents, a lot of them have asked us. How do you encourage kids to be honest and open with you? Sometimes, they are doing bad things and they know they'll get into trouble. So, how do you help them to be honest and open with you?
In parenting, we have to understand the difference between being mischievous and misbehaving. These two things we must understand. Know that Krishna was mischievous but not misbehaving. Know the difference between the two. Children will be mischievous. Children may even pick up things and drop things and break things, which is part of their growing process. And that should not be considered as bad. Of course, you guide them, you correct them, that in their mischievousness, they should not break or harm anything or anyone. So that is one. Then of course, there are things as children grow up. They are also experimenting. Some things they don't know and they do out of ignorance. And as a parent, you must know what they have been taught and what they have not been taught. And make them see for themselves that what was right and what was wrong. And there is where you have to be understanding that even if they may have done something terribly wrong, it could be out of ignorance, which they did not understand at all, and that could be guided and corrected. Then there are things that they do just out of fun, or just they think that it's a trend, or they do things which are harmful, which of course any parent would get anxious with. They are afraid that the children might continue to do that and harm themselves, or even may have already harmed themselves or somebody else in the process. Here also, they must be made to understand very clearly that this is not done. Now, when that communication that you're asking for, that in different stages of our life, we build, especially in the child's life. So in parenting, which for different ages I will be speaking on, and this might be a repetition, that in certain age, you develop that affectionate bond with your children of developing in them the sense of confidence that the parent does not get angry on you or wants to harm you at any period of time. This is where you must know that getting angry and showing anger are two different things. Children know the difference, they can realize the difference. There are some who may not. But it's important that we understand this difference ourselves, that when the child is honest with you, the child knows that he or she has done something wrong and is ready for correction. That is the time, if you blow up on them, they get frightened. And most children are dishonest, not because they want to hide or because they are too attached to something. Most of them are dishonest because of fear of their parents. Yeah? Now, a certain amount of fear comes with reverence. That is positive fear. But there's a fear that comes that even though it might be built in their mind, and most of the parents would not in any way, even in anger, try to harm their children. But if the children feel that they will be harmed due to the anger of their parents, then they will begin to lie. So therefore, when a child is honest, at the same time, one must make that fine line where the child must understand that just because you are honest does not necessarily mitigate what you have done wrong. And therefore, very lovingly they must be told to correct it, rather than they being fired. Yes, there are different types of children, different actions, and the parents have to judge that there are sometimes you have to be strict, you have to be commanding at that period of time, and also refrain them from doing it in spite of them being honest, but repeatedly doing that action again and again. So they should know that you don't have to fear us, but we are always there, that when you do something wrong or when you want something that is not right, we are here to correct you. Yes, it takes time to build that kind of a relationship, but if it is done at the right stages of their life, then by the time they become teenagers, and they can be revolting, and they would be doing things which maybe not conform to the parents' upbringing or ideals, then at that time they must be taught that whatever, even if we correct you, you have to be honest. And of course, they must see a demonstration of honesty and appreciation. Even if you have to scold them, their appreciation of them being honest. Then they will see the benefit of being honest.
Wow, Swamiji, that is indeed very profound to understand, how our children come to us. That they can go to their parents with the thought that, all right, even if I've made a mistake, I can still approach them. I really feel that that is the space that our children can come to us from, that even if I have made a mistake, it is still safe for me to go and speak to my parents about it. They'll understand me and they'll probably show me the right paths and give me, ways to correct the mistakes I have made. Often when my children come to me, and I've noticed that when they come and say, "Hey Mama, I messed up," my first reaction is, in my head, is like, what? But it takes a lot of practice to step back and take a moment and give our children a listen and allow them to talk about the places they messed up, give them that space and hold the space for them to reflect about it and to talk about the issues that they have created for themselves, and not always jump into scold them and correct them. And then once they are able to talk about it and resolve it, then definitely help them find ways to correct themselves. I think that's a good space to be in for a child, where they are allowed to make mistakes just like we are.
Yes, that is very important, because unfortunately parents immediately react. The fact that the child has come honestly to you, listen to that child, because the child is asking for help. The child is not asking to be condemned. He knows or she knows that they have done something wrong and they've come to you asking for help. And especially of this age, whether in their adolescence or their early teenage, where children see their peers, they get carried away, they do something wrong, they want acceptance even from their parents. not to be condemned. But at the same time, if they are being honest, one should not panic. Oh, you're going in that company where there is this addiction, that addiction, or they did this. The fact that the child is telling you, the child is asking for help or is asking for an understanding that will I lose out if I don't do all this? Or I did it, but I'm confused that should I do it for my peers or is it wrong? And others are doing it. Why should I not do it? But I'm not feeling comfortable with it. Should I still do it? This is what they are asking. And therefore, whenever you hear them, and I'll give you again an example, as even when you all were teenagers, you know that. In that way, whenever I was meeting teenagers or even conducting camps, so many teenagers would come up and very often share what goes on amongst their peers. And naturally, we've met so many children and we love them and there is no attachment. So there is no reaction immediately. Even if sometimes they tell you something shocking, we listen to them. And I remember once listening to this girl, and I know she's been brought up in a very value-based atmosphere. And she was telling me, and obviously I understood that she's asking for some guidance. Not just that I, confirm what she's doing is right. So I listened to her, made her inquire, and told her that, you think for yourself. What do you consider other people who do things like this? Then should you become like this? Like that, I was just having a conversation, not to get specific about what it was. And at the end of it, she understood and she clearly said, yeah, I know it's wrong and I will not do this again for any reason. But she said, but Swamiji, why don't you stay in our city only so that we can come back to you whenever we have got these dilemmas? I said, I'm definitely available for you whenever you want. Today we, of course, could connect through those days through emails, etc. And but she said, but immediately when you want something and you are in a situation. So I told them, as I encourage most youngsters, that see, your parents are your best well-wishers. They have experienced life. Go to your parents, grandparents, be open with them. Immediately, please, Swamiji, don't tell my parent. Don't tell my parents. So I laughed and I said, I know your parents when they were young. And I'm telling you, what you consider as cool, understand that they have also experienced all this and gone through it. So they will understand. Don't think they're your parents. But immediately, no, Swamiji, no, Swamiji. Because immediately my mother will say, you're not going there. I will lose all my friends. Which is partly true, as parents who have even gone through it and know that it is harmful and wrong, rather than understanding that at this age they will make mistakes, they will be carried away with peers, the fact that they have come to you, first listen to them rather than immediately jumping to conclusions and reacting in the situation. So first listen to them. Understand, are they asking for guidance? Are they apologizing? And then respond to them accordingly. Or are they expressing that they are weak and they want help? Then you can give them what they want at that time. Rather than reacting and suddenly putting restrictions on them or scolding them or reprimanding them, listen to them first. Then act. You might even have to use strict actions, but act, don't react.
Yes, Swamiji, I think that really helps me with my parenting woes, because I try my best to be as open and honest with both the children.
Don't fear anymore. You stay with me.